This video is about management systems and managing what matters. So when we think of management system and manage what matters, what does that mean? Manage what matters. Well, when we think of our management systems and managing what matters, what do management systems allow us to do? They allow us to have strategic decision-making, control, and they help to facilitate communication. So one of the absolute worst things that you can do is not take a decision at all. So that is the first one. But management system, strategic decision-making, I have our piece of art from Gaping Void here. Never try to sell a meteor to a dinosaur. It wastes your time and annoys the dinosaur. The reason I have that is that I worked for a part-time as a consultant, and the project was the Chilean Navy. So I was in Chile and worked with the admirals there at the Chilean Navy. I was only there for a few weeks, maybe a month at the most, in Valparaiso in Chile. But the reason that I have this particular art is that I had spoken with our president, and it was a very flat organizational chart. So it's not like I went up a whole lot of different ranks, but spoke with the president and asked him about the battleships and how did the Chilean Navy determine, or how did they decide upon using our software that was going to be on the logistics side of things, supply side of things. How did they decide to use our software? And the president, who was from Colombia, we were in Chile, but the president there said, "Oh, it was simple. We were a shoe-in." I said, "How could we have been a shoe-in?" Yeah, he said our major competitor was SAP. And what did SAP do? And SAP is a factor of 10 larger from a software perspective than our company was. And I asked him about that. He goes, "Yeah, well, what they did not realize they wanted to send, SAP being a German company, wanted to send a Spanish speaker to speak with the admirals there at the Chilean Navy." And so what did SAP do? They sent an Argentinian who spoke Spanish. And you say, well, hey, that ought to work. Well, from a strategic standpoint, it was the absolute worst thing that they can do, because 100 years ago, there was a war between Chile and I think it was Peru. And at the last minute, Argentina came in on the side of Peru. Then Argentina and Peru, Chile was winning the war. Argentina came in, and with Peru, they won the war, and Argentina took away more than half of Chile's surface area. All of that area that is called Patagonia, which is now Argentina, used to belong to Chile, but during the war, the Argentinians took it. It has tons and tons and tons of minerals in it, and mineral resources, and it is an extremely sore point for Chileans to this day when I was in Chile. And so from a strategic standpoint, it would have been much better to have sent an American. The admirals all spoke English anyway. They were the ones who were going to be making that purchasing decision. And when you think of who typically are the most conservative, well, it's the military. So do not try to sell a meteor to a dinosaur. That's what SAP tried to do, did not realize it. They were not culturally aware. And our company is the one who got the job. So from these management systems, they facilitate, one of the things that they facilitate is communication. And so part of that communication is, we are calling it assertive inquiry, and to change the culture from perhaps a top-down, uncaring or seemingly uncaring culture to a culture that allows better decision making. It's a culture that fosters the creation of strategy at all levels of the company, because it encourages logical reasoning based upon a set of agreed upon raw data. And you say, well, how do you do that? Well, that assertive inquiry is saying, this is how I see the process. This is how I see what is going on. This is how I see this situation and why I see the situation a particular way. Can you help me to see that situation differently? What is it that I am missing? What is faulty in my logic? And to be sincere about this. And so what does it do? Is it helps the employees, the group of people, the top, that next rung of managers or the rung of managers beneath, it helps them to feel that they have a say and that what they say is important, and it allows them to be invested in the particular decision, but as well, it allows their thoughts, their logic to move up the chain. And so that communication, that strategic communication, will help to form a better culture, and as well, it will help for better facilitate better actual decisions being made. So when we think of management systems, we think of what? We think of an integrated set of tools that measure the designing, the sourcing, the producing, the selling, and the servicing of products, and then communicating those measurements to top management. And what does that look like? What does design, sourcing, producing, selling, and servicing look like? That's your value chain. So our value chain is as well part of our management system. When we think of examples here of management system, we think of strategic planning. So we think of statement of financial targets and strategic goals. We think of forecasts and assumptions. So those are a grouping of internal factors as well as external factors. So our internal factors are our statement of financial targets and strategic goals. So from a target standpoint, what is it? What are we thinking of? We're thinking of revenue growth, cost reduction, operating profit, return on capital employed. When we think of goals, what are those strategic goals? The market share, the new product creation, that new business development. When we think of the external part, those forecasts and assumptions, what is that? Those are those key developments in the external environment that are going to affect our decisions, that are going to affect our performance. So what are some examples there? The price of fuel, the scarcity of input. So that is from an external view. When we look at our financial systems, we look at CapEx, we look at OpEx, and so capital budgeting, operational budgeting. What's the point of that for looking at that operational budgeting by division, by company? It's basically a pro forma profit and loss, pro forma income statement, so that we can see quickly how are we doing against our particular goals. What is it? How is our performance? And do we need to make an adjustment to any of our operational, what we're doing from an operational standpoint? What do we need to make an adjustment there because we are not meeting those goals? If so, we need to know that up front. We need to know sooner rather than at the end of the year. So therefore, we want to have a monthly or a quarterly OpEx review to find out how we're doing. As well, pardon me, from a human resource management system, what do we want to do? We want to align the goals of our employees, to harmonize those activities. We want to share that knowledge and that consensus building. We want commitment of action. We want to have our employees to be committed to the results and to how we are actually working together. So those employee goals and performance targets, those employee incentives to, again, align the employees together. When we look at measurement, we see that measurement provides focus and feedback. And why does it provide focus? Because those results can be examined. Feedback, because we know that we are going to be measured against a certain set of criteria. And so we need to make sure that our actuals, our output is going to successfully meet those expectations. However, the other thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that what we are measuring is actually what should be measured. So we need to have that understanding, and what is the best way to measure is to have a quantitative range. So we are trying to have as much science in the measurement side of things. We're trying to have more science than we are trying to have art there. So again, that focus, because we know that our results will be examined. When we look at our objectives, goals, strategy, and metrics there, those come from our core where to play and how to win choices. So our goals there are to have a clear, simple understanding of that strategy that is going to help us to analyze our human resources, to analyze how our capital is being allocated, to look at how are we performing on these against these strategic priorities. So it's a tightly focused view of strategy of our priorities. It is a tightly focused view of the measurement of those priorities. So we want to have a single page, if we can, to very surgically key into those measurements. And then we want to be able to very quickly, easily show that focus, show that strategy, show those priorities, and communicate those priorities throughout the organization. Part of what we are going to communicate, or part of what we are looking at, is our total sales growth. So we're calling this total shareholder return. As part of that total shareholder return, we've got our sales growth, we've got our profit margins. Are we increasing? Are we decreasing with regard to our profit margins? How are we doing for our capital efficiency? What is our return on capital employed there? Are we going up or are we going down? When we look at our weighted purchase intent, what does weighted purchase intent means? It means that we are looking at all of the factors that influence a customer in his or her decision. Don't forget, it is a decision for the customer to purchase our product or our service. What are some of the items there that are involved? It's the aesthetics, the design, it's the feel, it's the technological requirements. So we are looking at everything that influences our customer. So we're looking at that moment of truth. So when our customer first experiences that product in the store. Where is it on the shelf? What does it look like? What does the packaging look like? When they bring that product home, how is the packaging? Is it easy to open? What color is it? What's the material? What is the size and the font of the type? Can they easily read those instructions, for example? How is the labeling? So we have to work with the retailer for that. And so as well, when it's home, we look at how do we open it? How do we close it? How do we store it? Is there a smell? What is the touch? What is the texture? What are all of the things that come into our customer making a decision to purchase our product? Again, it is those value points that a lot of time are sensory, our sense of touch, our sense of smell, our sense of taste. So that those sensory effects there will make a difference on our weighted purchase intent, which is measuring all of those factors. And so also what we see is what gets measured gets done. So we look at those measurements and we measure against where do we play, how are we winning in our chosen market, what are the required capabilities there. So that allows measurement, allows focus, measurement allows feedback, and that it's almost a sense of urgency. What is the worst thing to have in a company is not to have a sense of urgency. If you don't have a sense of urgency, things just kind of go as they go, and there's no push, there's no action. Don't forget that strategy requires what? Strategy requires action. So when we look at measurement, when we look at what matters is as well that those full items that do come into a customer making that decision. And so that helps us to focus on what are the needs of our customer so that we can provide a product or service that not only meets the needs today, but anticipating those future needs, and before those future needs are even crystallized in our customer's mind, allowing us to provide for those needs.